West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy with Chef Justice Putnam. Netrootsradio.com.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
We begin the readout tonight, 3 weeks to the day since Donald Trump announced that the FBI had searched his Mar-a-Lago home to retrieve classified documents he took with him when he left the White House. During that time, the twice impeached former president has continued to try to play the victim, claiming he's under attack by the mean old Biden administration in some sort of political vendetta. But in that same time span, we have learned not only the multiple attempts made by both the National Archives and the DOJ to retrieve all of these documents, but how highly classified some of them were and what they contained. According to Friday's redacted copy of the affidavit, the initial trove of material collected in January included 184 unique documents with classification markings, some marked as top secret. We also learned that some of the documents had markings indicating they could include some of the government's most highly guarded secrets, such as human intelligence sources. That has led the Director of National Intelligence, Avril Haines, to order a damage assessment to determine the risks to national security. And we still don't know what Trump was doing with the documents and who had access to them. For all of his flailing around on his pretend Twitter thing, not once has he explained why those documents were being kept at his not all secure golf resort, like the slippers that you'd nick from a nice hotel. All of this while the former president's legal team struggles to find a defense argument they can stick to for more than a few days. Now, of course, it must be hard when they're being directed by Trump himself. And when, according to the New York Times, people familiar with his thinking say Trump sees Attorney General Merrick Garland not as the federal government's chief law enforcement officer, but merely as a political foe and someone with whom he can haggle about how much anger exists over the situation. Meanwhile, later this week, a U.S. district judge will hold a hearing over Trump's demand for a special master to review the materials seized by the FBI to seek out any privileged material. Judge Eileen Cannon, who was appointed by Trump in 2020, issued a 2-page order this weekend indicating that she is ready to grant his request. The DOJ responded today confirming that they'll comply. But here's the thing. They've already completed their review of the materials, and they're already working on addressing any potential privilege disputes. And let's not forget that in the FBI's search of Mar-a-Lago, they seized even more classified documents, including some that were meant to be read only in special secure government facilities. Joining me now is Naveed Jamali, editor-at-large at Newsweek and a former FBI double agent, and Glenn Kirshner, former federal prosecutor and an MSNBC legal analyst. And Naveed, my friend, I did want to talk to you today because you are in the unique position of having been a double agent, have been someone who relied on the protections afforded to you by the secrecy of what you were doing. And I am very interested to hear what you make of the fact that Donald Trump had all of this classified material, including classified material, I should say, at his house, including human intelligence materials.
You know, Joy, maybe I was out that day at spy school, but I'm pretty sure they never told me, hey, Naveed, we're going to protect your identity. But if it does get out, don't worry, we'll bring the Espionage Act to bear. Look, the point about secret intelligence is that it remains secret. Everything that's happening now, from a master to, hell, even the FBI agents that are pulling those documents out of Mar-a-Lago, that puts the intelligence contained within them at risk. You know, there's a social contract that I had with those FBI agents. I went into places that I didn't know that were safe, and they agreed to protect my identity. Once I gave them that information, I had no idea what was going to happen with it. I didn't know who was going to see it. I didn't know what they were going to do with it, but I had a guarantee from them that my name and my identity would be kept safe. Because in espionage, you know, best case scenario is you're compromised. The worst case scenario is pretty darn bad, and there's a lot of worst case scenarios. It just frustrates me. I mean, everything with Trump is a 12. It's hard to feel that, like, when everything's a 12, nothing's a 12. But this, to me, is personal. I mean, this is something that puts people's lives at risk. And just in a best case scenario, Trump was incompetent. But when we've seen Trump, it's rarely the best case scenario.
Yeah, and just to be clear, and this is for my lovely, wonderful director, there have actually been really catastrophic situations for our spies. Back in 2021, the New York Times reported that troubling numbers of informants recruited from other countries to spy for the United States have been captured or killed in recent years. Adversarial intelligence services in countries such as Russia, China, Iran, Pakistan have been hunting down the CIA sources and in some cases turning them into double agents. So again, the risks are real, Naveed. This isn't theoretical.
That's absolutely right. Look, you know, China, North Korea, Iran, Russia, every day they're looking for our spies. There are people here today that are spying for the benefit of the United States of America, and we owe them a minimum duty of protecting their identity. Look, I don't know whether the result of those deaths was because of something Trump did or didn't do. This is a problem, and the point is that you have to do everything in your power to protect that. And the fact that Trump sees this information potentially as something that is beneficial to him as a transaction, not, you know, this idea of like higher service or selflessness or just duty to people that are frankly risking their lives and their families' lives for our country. It's just par for course when it comes to Trump.
And Glenn, let me go to you on this, because Donald Trump has tried to make it seem like he's being treated worse than anyone would be treated under the same circumstances. But I think it's fairly obvious that he's been treated much, much better. He was able to hold on to this information that the government desperately wanted back for nearly 2 years, for 18 months. And you pointed out earlier, you know, we do all follow you on the Twitters. You pointed out that there's a woman named Asia Janae Lavello who went to jail. And what she went to prison for was taking classified documents with secret classification to her hotel room and failing to use a secure diplomatic pouch. She went to prison. Trump is golfing. Your thoughts?
Yeah, and Joy, the point is that we should hold folks accountable when, you know, they violate the trust placed in them, particularly as government employees. But the point is, you see when somebody like Miss Lavarello engages in a breach of security that is not 1/1,000,000th as dangerous to the United States as what Donald Trump did, those documents he stole from the federal government and unlawfully concealed at Mar-a-Lago. And let's be clear, we have no idea what he did with them, how he might have exploited them, how he may have compromised our national security. But, you know, there's no dispute that what he did is 1,000,000 times worse than what Miss Lavarello did. And she promptly landed in prison for that, you know, one secret document that she mishandled. And what did our federal government, our executive branch, our Department of Justice do when they learned that Donald Trump had this treasure trove of classified information? They negotiated with him endlessly. They catered to him, begged, pleaded, and implored, please give us the documents back. That is not the way our federal government should handle breaches of our national security.
You know, I mean, if you ask, we've had Reality Winner's mom on this show. I highly doubt that there was begging and pleading and asking. She was thrown in prison, and she was trying to help the United States by exposing contacts with Russia and the Trump campaign. David Petraeus, who served this country admirably. Donald Trump, he didn't cry bone spurs. He signed up, right, and served the country. He still got prosecuted for exposing classified data. Glenn, I can't imagine, and can you imagine anyone else other than Donald Trump maybe because he's a former president, or maybe because he's just the luckiest SOB on earth that could be free from jail and not be in manacles and shackles 18 months after taking that much classified data?
No, and at some point it becomes deeply unjust for example, the foot soldiers of Donald Trump's insurrection that he told to attack the Capitol, stop the certification of Joe Biden's win, fight like hell or you won't have a country anymore. Those folks are being indicted, they're being convicted, and they're being imprisoned. And yet Donald Trump, who orchestrated the attack, has a tea time tomorrow morning, and Miss Lavarello sits in prison. That is a deep injustice that needs to be remedied with charges for Donald Trump and his criminal associates.
Let me play Roy Blunt, because the other thing is the defense of him, the relentless defense by the MAGA Republicans, elected Republicans, who I don't think are serving their constituents very well. This is Senator Roy Blunt. He was on with George Stephanopoulos, dodging and weaving like he was on a soccer field as Stephanopoulos was asking him pretty straightforward, simple questions.
Was he right to take these documents to Mar-a-Lago?
Well, I think we need to know more about the documents.
Was it right for the president to take these government documents, which he's supposed to turn over to the National Archives, down to Mar-a-Lago?
You should be very careful with classified documents. Everybody needs to be more careful.
Do you believe it was right for the president to take those documents to Mar-a-Lago?
I understand he turned over a lot of documents. He should have turned over all of them. I imagine he knows that very well now as well.
Well, he hasn't said that. He said he did nothing wrong.
Naveed, you've been involved in briefing members of Congress. What do you make of a member of Congress who also takes the oath to defend this country against all enemies, foreign and domestic, not being able to simply state that it is wrong, if not illegal, and actually illegal, to steal, essentially, our national secrets and put them in your bedroom?
Look, it's indefensible. The reality, Joy, is that the information, that whatever that information contained, it's already been compromised. It's been compromised by the fact that people who weren't cleared, including the FBI agents, who, by the way, were doing their job, when they go in and retrieve those documents and have to archive it and have to index it, right there, you're putting people that don't have access to need to know stuff to that information. That is a compromise. So the fact that Donald Trump, we can talk about the legal parsing of this at all, but let's talk about the morality of it. Like, you have a duty to protect this country's secrets.
It is Tuesday, the 30th of August of 2022, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam. Gunner the English Bulldog is our snoozing sous chef, and our daily special is Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. What? Yeah, we missed Monday because I'll tell you why. We took my dear mom in for her hip replacement surgery, and fully expecting that they would keep her for a few more days as originally planned, and that is exactly what is happening as originally planned. And keeping fingers crossed it won't be longer than that. There is some talk of maybe she'll have to be in what they call a rehab home because her confusion level is a little bit higher than one would want it. And that actually was somewhat expected as well. We'll see how she fares when I go and visit her this morning. And when she comes off of the anesthesia, she was, shall we say, a little delusional. My poor mom. Yeah, sometimes anesthesia can be a truth serum or what? I don't know. But I wouldn't say it was necessarily the truth, but there was a bit of dreamlike or nightmarish descriptions of events, and that was a bit of concern, only in that they didn't want to just push her out on the street, which is what they had assured us would not happen. They wouldn't just push her in the street if she wasn't ready to go home yet, and we knew that it would take some time. I gotta say, mostly from a structural point of view, because rehab is tough for some people, and mom has, though it's weird how we as human beings are, by one turn, I could say that my mom has a low threshold for pain. And then when I saw what her hip looked like on the x-rays and other imaging, the first thing that came to my mind is, how is my mom able to stand that pain? Well, it got so much that she couldn't take it anymore. And what we thought might be that mom has a low threshold of pain was the exact opposite. And is that the way to be? Because usually when you have pain, it's a warning. It's a warning not to ignore it or to mask it from other people and just keep going. But a warning to, maybe slow down, stop. Do we ever do that? No, we're virtuous to be able to work through the pain. And I only speak of this because I am so guilty of it myself. And I don't know. Is that what manly men do? Apparently. I bought into it. And look at me now. Yeah, they never tell you how much it's going to hurt. Oh, you think it hurts now? Wait until later. Yeah, you might hear that a little bit, but you're dissuaded from actually believing it. Oh, that won't happen to me. I will have supple muscles and ligaments. They will be springy. Yeah, they will be springy. Mush. They spring, but they don't spring back. Yeah. Anyway, she was actually got up and about. I mean, they put something into her body, a bionic type of device in a way. And she was actually able to, with some help, get to the bathroom and whatnot. One part of the visit with her yesterday that made me aware that the anesthesia could be having a big impact on what's going on is that she got a little sick too, which is a symptom of, anesthesia. Some people, they're powerful drugs. And when you start taking them, you can get a little squeamish, as we say. And then you get over the squeamishness and they got you hooked. Well, that's part of it. So just the whole general experience, would put my mom into, shall we say, a state. And as it wears off, we keep our fingers crossed, don't we? Yes, we do. Well, enough of the HIPAA violations. I'm not selling it to a third party, okay? I'm just giving you some information, general information. Anyway, thanks for, before I go on, thank you for those of you who reached out and wished us good luck in this procedure. And that was very heartfelt and much appreciated. So thank you. All right, let us dive into... before we get into the curated part of the show, should we speak about a little bit of the events of the day? I don't know, should we? Well, instead of that, why don't we just speak about the events of the day by giving you a rundown of the curated part of the show, which is the events of the day. Not once has Trump explained why all those classified and other sensitive U.S. documents were being kept at his not all secure golf resort. Is it a golf resort? On the rest of the menu, Governor Tate Reeves, I like to call him Tater, declared a state of emergency after monsoon rains flooded the Mississippi capital and shut down its water treatment plant. No more water for you. We ignored climate change, and we're going to ignore it now. Yeah, just try to ignore it. Federal regulators sued a data broker accused of selling sensitive geolocation data from millions of mobile devices. Sensitive geolocation data like where you went to get women's health treatment, for instance. And Facebook settled its lawsuit in the Stephen Bannon Cambridge Analytica scandal. We all remember that, don't we? That's how Trump came to power. After the break, we move to the chef's table, where a Russian journalist has been charged with funding an extremist organization by donating $16 to a Navalny foundation. And leaders of the European Union and Germany pledged reforms to cut electricity prices. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. Bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com. To the right of the page is the chat room link, and the chat room is monitored by Kelly Lincoln. Thank you, Kelly. To the left of that chat room link across the page, near the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com, is the link to our Patreon page. And yes, do become a recurring Patreon of Netroots Radio. We would love that very much. And thank you to those of you who have, and thank you to those of you who will. If you would like to follow Netroots Radio on Twitter, you can do that by going to @NetrootsRadio on Twitter, and Tom takes care of that, and thank you, Tom. You can follow me on Twitter @JusticePutnam. Fancy that. Yes, @JusticePutnam, and I post the show notes and links diary on Daily Kos about 10 minutes before showtime. And it's not about 10 minutes. It is at 10 minutes before showtime. And you can find those show notes and links by following me on Twitter @JusticePutnam, because it takes you right there. There's a link right there that takes you to my diaries. Yes, there they are. If you would like to follow the show on Twitter, you can do that by going to @CookbookWest. And please do pick up podcasts by way of Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, iTunes, etc., etc., etc. And don't forget that you can pick up the deep archive of the Netroots Radio Library at the Internet Archive at archive.org. 11 plus years. 11. Okay, this first offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy as we begin here on this Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays after a day off. Yeah, usually Mondays is the day that we take our time to ease back into the week. Well, we're going to have to go at somewhat of a full trot here on Tuesdays, and the Associated Press, with Emily Waxter-Pettis and Michael Goldberg penning this piece, bring us this first offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. Mississippi Governor Tate Reeves, I like to call him Tater, said yesterday, Monday night, that he is declaring a state of emergency after excessive rainfall exacerbated problems in one of Jackson's water treatment plants and caused low water pressure through much of the capital city. The low pressure raised concerns about firefighting and other people's ability to take showers or flush toilets. Reeves said today the Mississippi Emergency Management Agency will start distributing both drinking water and non-potable water in the city of 150,000 residents, and the National Guard will be there to help. The governor said he understands people in Jackson don't want to have water system problems. Really? Why? A swollen Pearl River flooded at least one home in Jackson yesterday, Monday, days after storms dumped heavy rain. We call it monsoons, but water levels were starting to recede. Jackson Mayor Lumumba said the water did not rise as high as expected. Earlier projections showed about 100 to 150 buildings in the Jackson area faced the possibility of flooding. The National Weather Service said the Pearl River had crested about 35.4 feet. That is short of the major flood stage level of 36 feet. Jackson has 2 water treatment plants, but the larger one is near a reservoir that provides most of the city's water supply. The reservoir also has a role in flood control. Lumumba, a Democrat who was not invited to the governor's news conference, said flooding has created additional problems at the treatment plant and low water pressure could last a few days. Jackson has long-standing problems with its water system. A cold snap in 2021 left a significant number of people without running water after pipes froze. Similar problems happened again earlier this year, but on a smaller scale. The city has been under a boil water notice since late July because tests found a cloudy quality to the water that could lead to health problems. Cloudy quality. What's in the clouds? Legislative leaders have reacted with alarm to Jackson's latest water system problems. We have grave concerns for citizens' health and safety, Republican Lieutenant Governor Delbert Hosemann said, suggesting the state take a role in trying to solve the issue. The Republican House Speaker, Philip Gunn, said he has been contacted by hospitals, businesses, and schools pleading that something be done to address the water crisis in Jackson. Well, you would think. As the Pearl River started to rise last week, some Jackson residents started moving furniture and appliances out of their homes and others stocked up on sandbags. 2 years ago, torrential rain caused the river to reach 36.7 feet, and homes in the hardest-hit neighborhoods were filled with dirty, snake-infested floodwaters. Marcy Gordon of the Associated Press brings us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Federal regulators have sued a data broker they accuse of selling sensitive geolocation data from millions of mobile devices, information that could be used to identify people and track their movements to and from sensitive locations, including reproductive health clinics, homeless shelters, and places of worship. The Federal Trade Commission sued Idaho-based Coachava Inc. amid a charged debate over the privacy of individuals who may be seeking an abortion in the wake of the Supreme Court's ruling in June, ending the constitutional protections for abortion. Although it's not the first case the FTC has brought against a data broker, experts say it is the first one involving healthcare data and referencing reproductive health clinics. This is potentially a big deal. Jeff Chester, executive director of the Center for Digital Democracy, a privacy advocacy group, said of the FTC's action, they placed a stake in the ground. The data broker industry, which gathers, sells, or trades location data from mobile phones, has come under increased scrutiny from Congress and regulators following the Supreme Court decision. Lawmakers have asked the top executives of major tech companies, as well as smaller data brokers, for information about their handling of consumers' location data from mobile phones and what steps they have taken to protect the privacy rights of individuals seeking information on abortion. The FTC this month announced it was looking at drafting rules to crack down on what it sees as harmful commercial surveillance and lax data security by tech companies and others. In its lawsuits against Coachava, filed in federal court in Idaho, the FTC alleges that by selling tracking data, the company enables other parties to identify individuals and exposes them to threats of stigma, stalking, discrimination, job loss, and even physical violence. The agency is seeking to halt Kochava's sale of sensitive geolocation data and to compel the company to delete the geolocation data it already has collected. Associated Press staff bring us this final offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. Facebook's corporate parent has reached a tentative settlement in a lawsuit alleging the world's largest social network service allowed millions of its users' personal information to be fed to Cambridge Analytica, a firm that supported Trump's victorious presidential campaign in 2016. Terms of the settlement reached by Meta Platforms. They can change their names, but they can't hide. The holding company for Facebook and Instagram were not disclosed in court documents filed on late Friday. The filing in San Francisco federal court requested a 60-day stay of the action while lawyers finalized the settlement. The timeline suggested further details could be disclosed by late October. The accord was reached just a few weeks before a September 20 deadline for Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg and his longtime chief operating officer Sheryl Sandberg to submit to depositions during the final phases of pre-trial evidence gatherings. Zuckerberg, who founded Facebook in 2024 as a Harvard University student, could have been deposed for up to 6 hours. Sandberg, who is stepping down as chief operating officer after a 14-year stint, could have been questioned for up to 5. The case sprang from the 2018 revelations that Cambridge Analytica, a firm with ties to Trump political strategist Stephen Bannon, had paid a Facebook app developer for access to the personal information of about 87 million Facebook users. That data was then used to target U.S. voters during the 2016 campaign that culminated in Trump's election as the 45th president. The ensuing uproar led to a contrite Zuckerberg being grilled by lawmakers during a high-profile congressional hearing and spurred calls for people to delete their Facebook accounts. Even though Facebook's growth has stalled as more people connect and entertain themselves on rival services such as TikTok, the social network still boasts about 2 billion, that's with a B, 2 billion users worldwide, including 200 million in the U.S. and Canada. A lawsuit, which had been seeking to be certified as a class action representing Facebook users, had asserted the privacy breach proved Facebook is a data broker and surveillance firm as well as a social network. And that they are indeed. All right, let's get to our break. And when we get back from that break, we will go through weather from around the world, and we will finish up with the stories that we have curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, A new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Mike Friend. This week, Tick, Tock, Die. Every generation has its favorite young people get together and things happen movie in genres from comedy to horror. Think The Big Chill to the Scream movies. In the new Bodies, 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 named after the murder mystery parlor game, we meet Bee, a working-class immigrant, and her new well-off lover, Sophie, on their way to an estate owned by the family of one of Sophie's friends, David, for a hurricane party. On arrival, we're introduced to a variety of Gen Z characters, including podcaster Alice and her definitely not Gen Z boyfriend, Greg. The alcohol and drugs are flowing, the winds are rising, and the power goes out just as their Bodies game is beginning. What could possibly go wrong? After the game degenerates, Bee finds David outside with his throat cut, which leads to a dysfunctional query as to who killed him, where the characters' petty grievances and distrust of one another come to the fore. While the film has a foot in the horror genre and builds a significant body count, the genius here is in the script's dialogue, which is full of social media buzzwords, which are appropriately sent up, and where these awful kids reveal themselves as vacuous, incompetent, and self-centered, but mostly just rich, or as is self-described in one wonderful exchange, upper middle class, as one set of parents worked at a university, but one that's public. There are spot-on performances here from Amanda Stenberg, Maria Bakalova, and Pete Davidson, plus music and cinematography that enhance the whole morass. Its concluding big tell puts a giant period on the pointlessness of these people's existence. About Bodies, 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 another reviewer said, just visualize and then there were none in the Instagram era. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Mike Friend. Catch up with us at take2moviereview.com and feed us back on our channel on YouTube.
This is Scientific American's 60-Second Science. I'm Christopher Intagliata. Artificial intelligence systems have bested humans at chess, poker, Jeopardy, Go, and countless other games. But machines still aren't that great at understanding some basic rules about the physical world.
They still can't do what 3-month-olds do. And I think this is, I'm a champion of babies at the end of the day, and this is a clear win for babies. Babies are still slam dunking even our most powerful computers when it comes to intuitive physics.
Cognitive psychologist Susan Hespos of Northwestern University listed off a few examples of those intuitive physics principles, like solidity. Your coffee cup does not just fall right through the table. Or continuity. Objects don't just blink in and out of existence. And boundedness. When you pick up your coffee cup, it sticks together. You don't end up with just the handle.
Babies know all three of these things as early as 3 months of age. Their visual acuity is lousy. The world is blurry. They could barely grasp this stuff. Babies get a lot of things wrong, but it's just these initial kernels that get elaborated and refined through experience in the world.
Now computer engineers have taken a page from the baby playbook. Researchers at DeepMind, that's the AI company that trained computers to beat humans at Go, they've endowed a machine learning system with certain kernels of knowledge about intuitive physics built in, akin to what an infant might be equipped with. And after watching the equivalent of about 28 hours of training videos, showing things like balls rolling and blocks dropping, the AI system actually showed surprise when it was shown something physically impossible. Its counterparts that were not modeled on babies weren't quite as sharp.
It's really interesting that when you do this direct comparison, what you find is that learning from experience goes pretty far, but only so far. And the computer that was built based on research on babies did far better. It's confirming evidence for what baby research has shown for a while, just using something that is very different from a baby.
The results appear in the journal Nature Human Behavior. Hespos wasn't involved in the work, but wrote an editorial accompanying the paper, and she says the research is a step towards making machine learning systems more efficient thinkers, like humans, even the tiny ones. Thanks for listening. For Scientific American's 60-Second Science, I'm Christopher Intagliata.
This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
Hey, kids and parents, it's back to school time. As you shop for school supplies and get ready for class, make sure you have emergency plans in place. Did you know that emergency preparedness plays a major role in school life? Throughout the year, schools actively prepare for natural disasters, outbreaks, and other emergency situations. Students and parents need to be aware and learn what to do during an emergency. Every family should build an emergency kit, make a family disaster plan, and be informed about events that could affect their community. Parents, take a few extra steps to help children be prepared. Make sure they know the full name, address, and phone numbers of parents or guardians. In our high-tech world of cell phones, memorizing emergency phone numbers is very important. Include a copy of this information in their backpack. Other items to keep in their backpack include water and non-perishable snacks, a pocket-sized first aid kit, a whistle to alert others for help, and a list of allergies, medical conditions, and medications. Make sure their school and teacher have a copy, too. Be familiar with different routes and ways to travel home, like walking, taking the bus, or riding home with another student who lives nearby. Establish a secret code word with your child and whoever takes them home from school to protect against an unauthorized person picking them up. This list is a great starting point to prepare your student for the upcoming school year. Customize these steps to fit your child's capabilities and needs. Ask school administrators and teachers about emergency preparedness plans so you know what steps they are taking to keep your child safe. Many schools have guidelines on how to shelter in place during natural disasters, how to secure classrooms during an emergency lockdown, and how to teach preparedness curriculum to students. Remember, emergency preparedness is important for everyone. Children who are prepared are more confident during stressful emergency situations. By following preparedness guidelines, parents, children, and school staff can improve their safety and peace of mind. For more information on school emergency preparedness, visit cdc.gov/children/schools. To learn more about disasters and emergency preparedness, follow @CDC Emergency on Twitter or visit emergency.cdc.gov. So, let's get prepared. Have a great school year.
For the most accurate health information, visit www.cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO. This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
Good eating habits developed in childhood can last a lifetime, but getting children to eat their fruits and vegetables is a common problem. Eating them adds important nutrients, helps control weight, and reduces the risks for many serious illnesses. Children in the U.S. are eating more fruit. However, 60% of children get fewer fruits than recommended, and 93% don't get enough vegetables. Childcare, schools, and school districts can help change this by meeting or exceeding federal nutrition standards for meals and snacks, including fruits and vegetables wherever food is offered, and helping children learn about and taste fruits and vegetables. At home, parents can eat a variety of fruits and vegetables with their children and provide them as snacks, even if it takes many tries. Also, parents can include their children when shopping for, growing, and preparing fruits and vegetables. To learn more, visit cdc.gov/vital signs.
For the most accurate health information, visit www.cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
I was in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean when it happened. There was a sudden jolt and our submarine crashed on the seafloor. We were in total darkness.
That's Dr. Dejana Figueroa, a marine biologist and STEM teacher, talking about a deep sea dive she'll never forget.
It's funny, when I was a kid, I was afraid of the ocean, and there I was, 2 miles below the surface. But as a scientist, you prepare for that. Using our training and a little creativity, we fixed the sub and finished our experiments. The dive was just too important. Every dive gives us glimpses at things few people ever get to see. Glowing creatures, fiery undersea volcanoes. When we got back to the surface, I kissed the ground and called my mom, of course. But you know what? I wouldn't trade that dive for anything.
Dr. Figueroa uses her passion for STEM to discover new things and make the world a better place. She can STEM, so can you. Check out She Can STEM for more stories and inspiration. A message from the Ad Council.
Hi, it's Tom. Could we humbly suggest your donation to netrootsradio.com? All we've got to run this 24-hour powerhouse of progressive resistance radio is what comes out of our own wallets. And you are our biggest donor. And it doesn't take much, $3, $5. Just go to the bottom of our netrootsradio.com page and hit our secure donate button. Heck, you can even make a recurring contribution. So donate what you'd like at the bottom of our netrootsradio.com's homepage. Because you are our biggest donor. netrootsradio.com. Together, we are Resistance Radio.
Thou shalt not kill. I'm Bill Newman, and this is the Civil Liberties Minute. And on August 25th, that was the sign that a cousin of the man the state of Oklahoma was about to execute was holding in protest. It seemed for a while in August that the execution of James Coddington might not go forward, because on August 3rd, the State Pardon and Parole Board recommended that his life be spared. Indeed, the former director of the state prison system, as well as a former Speaker of the State House of Representatives, publicly spoke out to try to stop the execution. They said Coddington had achieved redemption. But the governor, Kevin Stitt, who had appointed most of the members of the State Pardon and Parole Board, rejected their recommendation. And on August 25th, the state, as planned, executed James Coddington. He was 50. 26 states have abolished the death penalty or have imposed a moratorium on executions. For good reasons. The death penalty makes no one safer. It's racially and economically biased. The system makes mistakes, grave mistakes, and it's irreversible. Oklahoma now is planning to carry out an execution almost every month for the next 2 years. Yes, really, month after month after month after month after month. That state plans to kill someone to demonstrate that killing is wrong. The Civil Liberties Minute is made possible by the ACLU because freedom can't protect itself.
Corporate acolytes and right-wing moralists constantly preach to laboring stiffs about the uplifting dignity of work. Of course, that's dignity as defined and controlled by corporate elites, not by workers, and the reward for it frequently includes on-the-job injuries and death. Not that CEOs and well-heeled investors intend to sicken, maim, and kill thousands of laborers every year, but they certainly do put them in positions that assure such unhappy results. For example, they demand that farm workers go sunrise to sunset picking crops in California's 105-degree desert heat, and that construction crews toil in the muggy, dog days of Florida summers, tarring condo roofs. Low-paid, powerless workers die, but no one in the corporate hierarchy did the deed, right? Heat was the killer. But wait, not only are aloof, air-cool bosses the ones who knowingly subject subordinates to deadly heat, but they're also the ones who hire squads of lobbyists and lawyers to kill simple, inexpensive rules to stop these deaths. Such rules as requiring ample water at work sites, ensuring paid rest breaks in cool spaces, training on-site managers and employees to detect and react to signs of heat stress, and imposing serious punishments for violators. Such sensible steps have repeatedly been proposed as official workplace policy for at least the last 50 years. But intense industry lobbying has killed the adoption of all attempts to prevent what amounts to workplace murder by corporate profiteers. Instead, the U.S. government pretends to protect workers by printing posters admonishing employees to beware of heat, basically telling them goodbye and good luck. This is Jim Hightower saying, but at last a real proposal has been put on the table by more than 110 grassroots groups. See it and join it by contacting Public Citizen, citizen.org.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1921. That was the day that one of the most pitched battles in U.S. labor history, the Battle of Blair Mountain, began in West Virginia. Coal fueled the engines of industry, keeping the trains moving and the steel mills humming. Labor organizing in the coal fields faced violent repression. The conflict turned bloody at Mattawan. friend of labor, local lawman Sid Hatfield, had won a gun battle against armed members of the notorious Baldwin Felts Detective Agency. Then, other Baldwin Felts agents, brought to West Virginia by the mine owners, gunned down Hatfield in cold blood. The miners' anger boiled over. 600 miners gathered under the United Mine Workers of America District 17 banner. The armed miners were determined to march into the state's southern coal fields. Their aim was to promote the union effort and sweep away the gunmen hired by the mining companies. As they marched, more and more miners joined them. As many as 10,000 miners converged on Blair Mountain. The high ground stood between the unionized northern part of the state and the less organized southern mines. At Blair Mountain, they met Logan County Sheriff Don Chafin, who had amassed an army of 3,000 armed men to repel the miners. Chafin's men had dug trenches, blocked roads, and marshaled machine guns to stop the Union men. In the battle that ensued, 1 million rounds were fired. The mine owners hired private planes to drop shrapnel bombs on the miners. The United States Army finally arrived. The miners, many of them World War I veterans, surrendered. Although the owners had won, what occurred at Blair Mountain drew national attention to the unsafe working conditions and the brutality of the coal barons in the coal fields. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. We always begin, whether from around the world, along the banks of the Rogue River, in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon, on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 60 degrees Fahrenheit, under hazy conditions, by the way, and I'll tell you why. And we are expecting highs above 100 degrees Fahrenheit. And we are also under an active air quality alert because of heavy wildfire smoke, indeed. So it will be sunny through that heavy wildfire smoke with winds out of the west-northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour, bringing in even more smoke from the nearby wildfires. Clear skies tonight, so they say, with lows in the mid-60s, winds out of the north-northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour, and then mainly sunny skies tomorrow around 100 degrees again, with winds out of the northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Confirmed cases of coronavirus in Jackson County in the southern part of Oregon have not been updated, of course, until since last Friday, where they now stand at 498,089 confirmed cases, with the deceased standing at 572. The update should come late tomorrow. Maybe we'll have it by showtime. Maybe not. Grass pollen is rated as low outside the window here in Rogue River, and the air quality index is in the moderate range at 85 parts per million, as registered by the local weather station at elevation, by the way. So maybe it's clearer up there, because it is chokingly bad where the front door of the mothership is, and we don't want to go outside. The daytime UV index is in the high range at level 7. Barometric pressure is holding steady at 29.97 inches, holding it all in, by the way. And that visibility is less than 2 miles. Oh, and I should also mention that relative humidity is at 75%. Weather from around the world is brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that are crowdsources from around the world. London is 74 degrees and partly cloudy. Paris is 80 and sunny. Rome is 92 degrees and fair with a heat advisory. Kyiv is 80 degrees and sunny. Kabul is 69 degrees and clear. Hong Kong is 84 and fair. Tokyo is 74 and cloudy. Sydney, Australia is 57 degrees and clear. San Francisco, California is 58 degrees and partly cloudy with a fog advisory on the bay for small craft advisory. Take care. And New York, New York is 84 degrees Fahrenheit and fair. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world. Anonymous staff at the Associated Press brings us this first amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. An independent Russian journalist has been charged with funding an extremist organization over donating a small amount of money to a foundation started by the imprisoned Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny. It is the first publicly known criminal prosecution for donating to Navalny's organization since they were declared extremist and outlawed last summer, an apparently new tactic that Russian authorities have chosen to deepen their crackdown on dissent. Radio Liberty cited Andrei Zyakin's colleagues as saying he was arrested in his Moscow apartment on Sunday and brought before a court yesterday, Monday. If convicted, he faces up to 8 years in prison. According to the Mass Media Defense Center, a rights group that helped defend Zyakin, the investigators accuse the journalist of donating about $16 to Navalny's Foundation for Fighting Corruption.
Je te donne ce mon amour pour la vie entière, la promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle, c'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer, mes automnes quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers.
Even more anonymous staff at the Associated Press bring us this final amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. The head of the European Union's executive branch and Germany's chancellor yesterday, Monday, pledged a reform of the continent's electricity market to help bring down the prices that have been pushed higher by skyrocketing gas prices. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said in a speech in Bled, Slovenia, that soaring electricity prices are now exposing the limitations of our current electricity market design. It was developed for different circumstances, she said. That is why we are now working on an emergency intervention and a structural reform of the electricity market. They can do that? The continent's electricity market is underpinned by a merit order system in which the power stations offering the cheapest electricity are tapped first, but prices are determined by the last and most expensive power stations to be tapped, just like here. At present, those using gas, whose price has risen sharply following cuts in supplies by Russia to several European countries amid the war in Ukraine, and that's why the electricity prices are so high. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz visiting Prague yesterday, Monday, said that the question of how the European electricity market can be redesigned so that we no longer have to bear these high prices we are currently seeking took up much of his meeting with Czech Prime Minister Petr Fiala, whose country currently holds the EU's rotating presidency. Schultz said that we will act together quickly, and they better. And that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day, and you do know Netroots Radio broadcasts on, and we will meet up here tomorrow for Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks, and we will meet up here tomorrow, right here in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Robe à fleurs sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair, t'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.